Good evening, mi gente. This is your host, Ray Collazo, and you're watching and listening to the Final Translation Bomba Live simulcast. Final Translation is the show that stacks truth about politics and today's hottest issues, and Bomba Live is a virtual Puerto Rican celebration. And you don't want to miss Bomba Live 2 on June 12th, 2021. We'll talk about that later in the show. On this Maria and Suave edition of the Final Translation Bomba Live simulcast, we're going to hear from an icon in our community, the legendary journalist and author, Maria Hinojosa, about her new book, but also this incredible relationship she developed with a man that has an incredible journey himself, Luis Suave Gonzalez, from juvenile lifer to an incredible redemption story, and someone that has now shared his personal story on the hottest podcast in the audio sphere, the Suave Podcast, which I know all of you are watching and listening to very intently. And this is going to be a very special episode about that really ties in so many of the themes that we talk about here on the show: leadership, collaboration, redemption, and community. And to kick off, to close this, as you know, I have a wonderful group of collaborators, but there was no one else I could call to have this conversation with Maria and Suave today, but community journalist and activist and a Philly jaunt, all right, Vanessa Maria Graver. Buenas noches,
Hello.
Vanessa. How are you?
Estoy bien. ¿Cómo estás? Thank you for having me.
No, I'm very happy that you're here, and it's so funny because on some level, first of all, there's no way I wouldn't have invited you to be our host for this very special episode. It ties in so many of the great things you work on in terms of community journalism, activism, your love for Philadelphia, your love for telling stories of the traditionally disenfranchised, the often forgotten in our community. But I knew if I didn't have Vanessa on this one, I would have heard something about it. So either way, you were good. Vanessa, how are you this evening?
You know, I'm feeling good. I feel like things are taking a turn for the better. Last couple times we got together, things weren't looking so good. Yeah. And, you know, it's a warm day out today on the East Coast. And, you know, things are looking just a little bit brighter.
Well, they're going to keep getting brighter. We're going to have a great conversation. We encourage people, you know, this one's definitely for North Philly, you know, where me and Vanessa are from. And also, as you'll find out in a moment with the background, our Colombian Barnett family. So definitely want to, if you got a buddy from those networks or just anyone that enjoys the great work of Maria Hinojosa and has gotten intrigued by the incredible personal story of Luis Suave Gonzalez, please share this out with your friends on social media. We appreciate people watching live on all your major social media platforms, as a YouTube show after the taping, as an audio show, of course, audio files, the original Found Translation podcast, which you can hear anywhere you download a podcast, and of course, as a radio show, which Vanessa brought to us that opportunity a few years back on WPPMLP 106.5 FM in the beautiful city of Philadelphia, People Power Media. So let's get right to it. Let's bring this incredible guest that's part of the family, and one of the beautiful things about this man and his incredible story, Luis Suave Gonzalez, is the more I get to listen to his podcast and the more I get to hear his personal story, the more I realize how much of this story I was a part of on some level. So it's an incredible moment for our show to have Luis Suave Gonzalez join us. As they say in the street, Suave. ¿Qué pasa, hermano? How are you, sir?
Gente, ¿qué pasa? No Philly. Stand up, no Philly.
No doubt, brother.
We're on the Ray Collazo show.
Appreciate you, brother. Ray Collazo Jr., as you know.
For those that don't know.
That's right. For those that don't know.
Ray Collazo kept us alive in the prison. With all the shout outs to the family. So I'm glad to be here.
Brother, we're so happy. First of all, you're out here with us free. And have the opportunity to share your vision, your humanity. And that's one of the things we want to talk about today on the show. How someone like you, who on some level, let's be honest about it, got every bad break, has not only come out of it stronger, but someone is committed to helping their fellow humans and their fellow neighbors and friends, particularly for North Philadelphia, brother. We appreciate you so much and just excited to hear your story. But let's bring the other special guest, the person that you are really intertwined with in history, in the media, and now with this historic, groundbreaking Suave podcast. I'll step to my co-host, allow her to introduce our other very special guest.
Well, I think one of the reasons Ray asked me on the show is because I'm a Latina in radio, and for so many of us across the country, Maria Hinojosa has been the voice that we've identified with, who's represented for us, who's told so many of our stories. I mean, she is really legendary. So it is just with so much honor and excitement that we bring her on to show to talk with us today about her new collaboration, the Suave Podcast with Suave Gonzalez, and her new book, Once I Was You. Let's welcome to the show, Maria Hinojosa.
What's up?
Maria, buenas noches. Talk about a bucket list moment. And I know
Yes.
all of our friends around the country. I'll share this with you, Maria. I wanted to get some inspiration from the people that just love you, not just in Philadelphia, and of course, it's a very special moment for our Columbia network, alumni network, but around the country and around the world. And so I get on Clubhouse at 10:30 last night, and I literally put in the subject, what should I ask Maria Hinojosa tomorrow? And I get this flood of Latinas who don't know me, just want to say, you're not talking to Maria tomorrow, right? And Maria, the questions went from very very in-depth questions around your reporting to her workout regimen to Chicago. I mean, it's everything to you mean so much to so many people in so many different ways. And I think that's why it's so appropriate for you to be on the show. Thank you so much, Maria, for joining us this evening.
Oh my God, that is so sweet. I mean, it's sorry, there's the dog on
Hey, we keep it real. It's all good.
We keep it real. Well, I mean, it's just, because of the pandemic, you're actually in my bedroom, all of you. And so it's just like when you hear like, oh, Maria, we've been listening to you for so long and you're the voice. And I'm like I'm here with my tennis shoes. I wasn't going to say chanclas. I happen to, I've washed my tennis shoes.
Los bonitos, los tenis.
Estoy con los tenis. Estoy aquí en mi recámara. And I'm, very, very casual and relaxed. And I'm with people who, who I am, seen, who I haven't seen for a while. And so there's kind of a mutuality and a lot of kind of familial space here. And I want to say this to Suave. I bet Suave is going to know. ¿Te parece algo conocido esta camisa, Suave?
Yes.
Yeah.
That was when you came to visit me on Mexican Day, and that was the last visit you came before I came home.
That's right.
Absolutely.
I happened to just, I was like, what am I going to put on? Because I was like, I don't get. And I love this shirt. It's a shirt that I've had since I was 17 years old. It's hand embroidered from the Zapotec people of Oaxaca. And it's one of my favorite shirts. And I wore it when I went to visit Suave the last time I saw him in prison. And I wore it because it wasn't Cinco de Mayo or anything like that. Wasn't Suave? I was just like, I want to be a proud Mexican. Was it?
Yes, it was.
All right. Well, I was just like, I'm going to be a proud Mexican at Greaterford.
No doubt about it. Well, let's start there because I want to Suave, there's so much and we want to make sure we hear not only about Maria's perspective on this incredible personal and journalistic journey that she's had with Luis Suave Gonzalez for decades. We also do want to hear about Once I Was You, your incredible new book, Maria, with the time that we have with you. But the first question I have for you, Luis, is that, at the time you first connected with Maria, you were still a very young man with a life sentence. And so my first question is, what about Maria gave you the interest or the ambition or the hope to even reach out to her, much less maintain this communication over those decades?
Well, it's an interesting story because I met Maria when I first came out the hole. I was in solitary confinement and I was into everything in the prison. I still had that street mentality. So an older fella gave me a radio and he told me, look, man, if you keep robbing people's cells, somebody's going to kill you in jail. So I'm going to give you this radio so you can stay out of trouble. So I plugged the radio in and it only had like 3 stations. It was WHYY, Temple, where your father was at with David Ortiz, and Power 99. So I was like, man, I got a radio with 3 stations. So one day I'm sitting in my cell, it's like 3 o'clock, and I hear a Latina come on the radio. And I was like, oh, there's a Latina on the radio. At that time, you don't hear Latinas on WHYY. So every day I kept hearing it, and I was like, wow. At first, I thought she was Puerto Rican. So I told everybody, we got a new Puerto Rican on the radio. So my friend was the tutor, in Gratisford, and he graduated that year, like 20-something inmates for GED. So they gave us the honor to bring the guest speaker in. And I was like, yo, you got to get her. You got to get Maria in here. She's dope. You got it. Somehow they got her. And they told me, you can't go to the graduation because you're not graduating. I said, okay, cool. I still got in because I was doing time in a corrupt jail. So I'm like, yo, I'm going to get in. So when Maria came and she was speaking, I just felt like she was speaking to me.
Wow.
And there was an auditorium full of people, but for some reason I was like, damn, she fucking my bad. She messed my hide up, right? Because I was high on marijuana. So I was like, she just messed my hide up. And I just felt that every word that came out of her mouth, she was directing it at me. So when she was done, you know, I asked her like, yo, what can I do? I'm doing life. I'm from New York, you know, and she said, you could be my source, which I didn't even understand what source meant at the time. But then she said, you could be the voice for the voiceless. And that's what clicked.
So Maria,
that's what got me interested. And that's what ultimately made me change my way of thinking in my life.
Wow. So Maria, kind of the same question. You know, one of the things in listening, and I encourage everyone, you know, we're not gonna be able to do justice to regurgitating the entire journey today. We really want to give people a sense of what's so special about this relationship with the intersections of community and media and these two people's lives and their personal and career journeys, how they were so intertwined in 2021. We encourage everyone to download and subscribe to Suave Podcast, which has been produced by Maria's incredible media company, Futuro Media, and distributed by PRX. But Maria, you know, the thing that struck me listening to this podcast is that, you know, you're known as like the busiest Latina in the media. And so not only did you take the time to go to Philly to even go speak to these guys in Graterford, you're not even from Philadelphia, but much less maintain communication with Suave, much less decades of communication, much less archiving, you know, the incredible, it seems to me, the meticulous effort you made to memorialize these conversations, not knowing where it would go, I would imagine. So Maria, what about Suave and his story and his journey compelled you to take so much care with everything you're doing in the media and your career and your family? There's a million guys in prison. There's a million stories. Why was Suave so compelling that you paid so much care to it all these years?
I mean, that's in the moment. I didn't know any of, you know, that there would be a compelling story that Suave would eventually get out. You know, I think when you ask the question, like, what compelled me, I think I go to, and by the way, thank you so much for all of the love. You know, I really appreciate that. I hope other people who are watching this decide to become journalists like you both, because we need more journalists of color and of conscience. But I think, you know, when I first connected, it was really it was very sad, actually. And I've actually never kind of connected with this. I think la verdad is like when Suave comes to me and he says, look, I'm going to be in here for life. I'm a kid. Suave, how old were you when I met you?
21.
Okay. Era un niñito. ¿Entiendes? Entonces, like, it was sad. It was heartbreaking. And I think that one of the things, as I say in the podcast, you know, actually, I don't know where I said this. No me acuerdo ahora, but I said, you know, as a journalist, one of the things that I think I understood, and I kind of learned this at WKCR, you know, Ray and you and I share that here at Columbia University in New York, where my career started, is that if you approach people and a story and an issue verdaderamente con humanidad, then you're going to get that back, right? And I think I saw that in action as my mother, you know, as we traveled across Mexico and the United States, how she would give humanity and also self-respect and get that back. And so with Suave, I mean, it was like, we kind of got in touch soon after I met Suave. It could have just completely gone nowhere, completely forgotten. Like, oh my God, but what ends up happening is that I then realize that there's a story I want to do. And I'm like, oh my God, this can take me back to Greaterford. I've got an inn at Greaterford. Let me go back. And they say, come back to Greaterford. And then I'm back in Greaterford. And then I see Suave again. And I've interviewed him actually interviewed him. And now he's on the air on a radio piece that ends up winning the Robert F. Kennedy Award. Like a big friggin' deal. It was a big deal that Suave was a part of this piece that wins this award. And then Suave, I think at that point maybe wrote to me or sent something. And I was like, or I don't know, Suave, if it was you or me first, but look, I knew he was going to be in there for life. And as I say in the podcast, I send Christmas cards, and I just started sending Christmas cards. I think the important thing and the message that I'm trying to get out to people who are, as you are doing on this show, which is the narrators of this moment, the live journalists that are capturing our history, is that we need you to do this. We need you to tell these stories. We need you to believe in the importance of telling these stories. And truth be told, because I always tell the truth, I had to fight to tell Suave's story. There were many times, Suave knows this, when Suave would call and I would drop everything that I was doing. I carry a recorder around with me. I would start recording the conversation, or I'd leave an important meeting or be in the middle of an interview. And I'd say, I got to run out to the studio. Suave is calling. And my team was like, who is this person, Suave? And why does he keep on interrupting everything that we're doing that is so important? And I was like, I got to go do this. And I'm really glad that Suave allowed me to capture his story. And Suave is in both senses, an absolutely ordinary human being. Suave is un hombre, un hombre, pero he is also an extraordinary human being. And and I'm just lucky that we have been through this. I mean, really, Suave been through it all, and then he just let me tell the story.
We're talking to Maria Hinojosa and Suave Gonzalez about their incredible journey as a journalist, an activist, a juvenile lifer, and a story of redemption. And Suave, that's where I want to go, because one of the incredible things, and we'll get into this later in the broadcast, is that the more I listen to this podcast, the more I realize I was intertwined in the story on some level, and how we were living very parallel lives on some level. And so, but what I want to ask you at this moment, Suave, and hopefully you'll come back, is that, for someone that's gone through what you've gone through, brother, I mean, the being grounded in who you are, this lack of a chip on their shoulder, is just so impressive to me. And so how did you get the strength, brother, not only to keep on keeping on while you were incarcerated, but to, but to come out without bitterness, and the perseverance to not only just live the rest of your life, but try to help others. And part of that helping others is telling your incredible story. Suave, can you hear me? You're on mute, brother. Can you hear me? Yeah, you have to unmute yourself, Luis.
Oh, okay. You hear me now?
Yeah, we hear you now, brother. So how did you, I don't know if you heard my question, but basically, how'd you find the strength to keep going, brother? In prison, out of prison, serving others, telling your story. I mean,
to me, it's just go without saying, when I was in prison, I lost contact with a lot of my family, for various reasons. You go to prison for decades, family dies, family forget about you. But I had an incredible person that every birthday, every Christmas, I had a card. And even when I'm out, I still get my birthday card and my Christmas card from Maria. And that gave me a lot of strength. And every time I called Maria when I was in prison, she was either in California, she was somewhere. And I felt like I was there with her, and I always said it, like sometimes we have family and then we have family for real. And that's what I found with Maria, where when everybody else say he's doing life, he's not coming out, Maria never turned her back, And even though she could have, she had nothing invested to gain nothing out of this relationship. But she stood there for all these years. So that gave me strength. That gave me the power to say, you know what? There has to be a better life other than Gratitude. I want to go to Chicago. I used to call her class in Chicago, and I used to always say, I'm going there one day. I'm going. And I went there. That was my first plane trip I ever took when I got out. I went there, but sometimes I want people to know that we are more than our worst mistake. And if you don't have no compassion, then you don't have a right to be in the business of talking to people, period. And I found in Maria's friendship what I didn't find in the school system, what I didn't find in my household or in my community, which was compassion and empathy. Maria sent me a box of books when I didn't even know how to read. She sent me a box of books. I paid somebody to read her book to me, and I memorized that whole book. And that box of book encouraged me to go to school, to learn how to read. And I went to school. I learned how to read. I got my degrees based on that little box of book. So we never know when we're going to encourage somebody or motivate somebody. Language is everything. I want people to understand that language is everything. If you tell your kid, you're never going to be nothing, and we do that in the Latino household. Tú vas a ser como tu papá. Tú nunca vas a llegar a nada, right? That kid will grow up believing it. I believed it, that I was never learn how to read, that I would never add up to nothing. I believed it till I met Maria in 93. Maria is the only person that ever told me, well, you could be the voice for the voiceless. I mean, imagine being told all your life, you're mentally retarded, you're never going to be nothing, and jail is probably going to be your destination. And then somebody's coming along, a stranger, telling you, wait a minute, you could be the voice for the voiceless. At that moment, I didn't know what that meant. But when I thought about it and the power behind them words, I said, you know what? I could. And that's what I did. So I come home. I ain't come home with a mind of entitlement. I came home to help my community. And many of y'all know I'm in the community. I don't want to be in the spotlight. I'm in the community, whether it's registering people to vote, whether it's helping returning citizens. That's what I do. I do it because somebody did it for me. I send Christmas cards to all my homies in the penitentiary because Maria did it for me. Wow. I send birthday cards to all my homies in the penitentiary because Maria did it for me. And it's crazy because I have a twin sister. And my twin sister, in my 31 years, never sent me a Christmas card or a birthday card. All the birthday cards and Christmas cards that I ever received in prison came from Maria Hinojosa. So to me, it's like I'm in debt now with my community. I'm in debt with Maria because if I mess up, I know Maria is going to come to Philly, and I don't want that. I don't want to deal with that. And I mean that in a good sense. That her mentorship towards me goes way, way beyond me being a source, you know. And I did understand when she said you could be my source. A lot of people asking me, "Oh, you ain't feel offended?" I was like, you know how blessed I felt being a source to a journalist while I'm serving a life sentence. You know what that meant? That meant that if injustice happened behind the prison walls, I could always call that journalist and report that injustice that was going on. And not too many prisoners in the United States had that privilege, and I had it.
Maria, I wanted to ask you because clearly the relationship that you had with Luis changed him and had a huge impact on him. And especially since, you were super busy, you were jet setting on a lot, you had a full life with your family. Luis's world was much smaller, right? So in many ways, you were one of the few mentors he had in his life. But how did the relationship with Luis change you? And specifically, how did it change your journalism? Because, right, at a certain point, he's not just a source anymore. He's a friend. He looks up to you. And you're sharing a lot more about your lives than probably what is source material for a story.
So I would actually say that the experience of being changed by this story is really happening in many ways now, because, there is something that I feel, okay, how do I explain this? I don't want to talk about Suave like he's just like not a part of this, but I want to talk about for a second the issue of journalism. That I am able to say to my staff, to fellow journalists, you never know where or how a story is going to present itself to you. And your job as a journalist is actually to be open and curious. I think as I'm listening to Suave, and there are things that he's saying here that I've never heard before, so I'm really, really appreciating this and enjoying this. Suave actually, a lot of the guys, I think Suave knows this, that I met the day that I met Suave, came and they were like, either it was very fleeting, nice to meet you, or can you help me? Can I send you something because I shouldn't be here and I want you to help me? And I was like, bruh, I don't know if I can really, Suave didn't ask me for help. This wasn't like, help me get out. It was like, I'm in. What am I going to do? So I think it's very important that Suave actually didn't come with an ask in the sense of demanding something from me, but rather, what can I do? So anyway, I guess what I'm trying to say is that the change that I'm feeling as a journalist is really, I'm experiencing now, when, this labor of, 27 years, since 1993, 28 years, I'm really bad with math, that you just don't give up on a story. Now, Suave and I have talked about this a lot. I have very few friends, la verdad. And a friend is somebody who you can count on at any time. And, during the 25 years that I knew Suave, he was in prison. I couldn't call Suave ever, and Suave and I have talked about this. And so really, the experience of, wow, you're out of prison, and it has been very, interrupted. I don't want to reveal too much, and I don't know how much people know about Suave's story, and I really want people to listen to the podcast, so I don't want to reveal. But there are ups and downs that happen throughout the way. And on top of that, now it's a pandemic. I mean, I last saw Suave just over a year ago, haven't seen him because of the pandemic. And so I don't know. I guess I just want to say that as a journalist, please don't give up. Understand that there are people everywhere who have important stories to tell, and we have to value them. And I knew people who had been in prison. I had family members in prison, people very close to me. I had been in prisons in Latin America, and prison to me was not a place that was filled with horrible people. It was filled with human beings. And my husband was with me that day when I met Suave. He was by my side, and he too had family members in prison. And so my husband and I were able to walk into a maximum security state prison like Graterford and not carry judgment. And I think that is something that Suave did pick up on.
Now, you are finally able to tell your own story in your new book, which is all about your own challenges and your story of survival. And it really also focuses on this theme that we're touching on right now, which is our humanity, right? Our humanity as people, our humanity as storytellers. Can you talk more about how you came to write this book and a little bit more about your journey?
So, well, writing a book is really hard. I didn't really want to write this book. I wanted to write a small little book based on something that I said on MSNBC that went viral when I said, illegal is not a noun. There's no such thing as an illegal human being. Y ese momento se vuelve una cuestión. And, somebody says, oh, write that book. Illegal is not a noun. I was like, I'm going to write a little book, like the little books that you would get in the airport, as if we were always going to be in airports. And then, there's a whole thing that happens when you're in the middle of trying to write a book, in the sense of a mainstream publishing company like Simon & Schuster and, agents and et cetera, et cetera. And actually, my agent asked me to write a big book. And I was like, ¿Cómo de que a big book? And she was like, we want you to write a book that has peso. So yes, your life, maybe that tiene peso, sure. But this is about really documenting history. It's about documenting policy. It's about talking about journalism. It's about talking about Latinos and Latinas in journalism and our invisibility. It's about imposter syndrome. It's about being a survivor of rape and not even realizing that I even was able to understand what had happened when I was 16 years old. And so the book actually has connected with a lot of people because there's a lot of talk about the imposter syndrome, about someone being very insecure, but still finding a way to make her world, make her progress in a world that is really dominated by men and white folks. And so now lo lindo es de que Once I Was You, there's a lot of love around the book. There's a lot of community love, which is why I can't wait to get to Philly, to be con la comunidad, to share the book. And I can't wait to, write my version of the Suave book. There is that book. And it will be written. Oíste, Suave. I'm going to write that book. So there's more to come. But yes, the community love for Once I Was You. And if people want me to visit their book clubs or, sign their book, we're doing all of that. Just find me on Instagram or on Twitter and we'll make it happen.
Yes, for folks just tuning in, the book is called Once I Was You, a memoir of love and hate in a torn America. And it's available everywhere you find books. But hopefully you will choose a local bookstore. And we have plenty of women of color-owned bookstores in the Philly area. So definitely check it out. I wanted to ask one last question because I know you're not here with us for a long time, but it was just like curiosity because, I, as a journalist and broadcaster, my partner is always like, who did you interview? Who are you talking to? At any point, did your family think kind of like, this is kind of weird. You're having this long-term friendship with somebody you didn't know before who's incarcerated and he's about to come out and he's been convicted of a serious crime. How did you explain that? Or did it not come up at all and it just didn't bother you?
I happen to have a husband who's extraordinary. His name is Germán Pérez. You can follow him on Instagram and you should. German Pérez Art. Herman is an extraordinary human being. We've been married since 1991. We'll be married 30 years this year. And I adore Herman. And Herman was, again, with me when I met Suave. So Herman is a man who is very centered in his manhood and his humanity. So Herman never, ever felt, I do think that it is a special trait. And I think because there's a tremendous amount of love and respect between us. I respect his work as an artist. It inspires me. It gives me life. And I believe that Herman is inspired by my work as an artist. And he hasn't heard Suave yet, but he knows Suave. Suave has visited our house since he got out of prison. And there's a lot of respect also for Suave. But Herman kind of like knew, he's like, that's her work. That's her work. That's something that she's doing for her work. And for my kids, I have to say, I felt it was very important that they knew somebody who was in prison, because I am not prepared to buy into the notion that people who are in prison are less than, period, less than human, less than anything. And I wanted my children to never grow up with that prejuicio. And so they were little kids, and the phone would ring and it would be, and who's that, mommy? Oh, it's Suave. Say hello to Suave. Hi, Suave. You know, I mean, little kids, Suave would get the Christmas cards with their photographs. So, you know, my daughter met Suave. My son knows Suave. Like, now they know Suave, and they understand that a person behind bars has no less humanity. And this was important for me to teach as a value to my children. And so, you know, that's kind of the impact that it had on my family. And I'm really happy that my family, my daughter, my son, my husband have been a part of important moments in the life of Suave.
And jump in, Vanessa.
No, I was just going to agree and say it's so important that we really amplify the voices of people who are still on the inside. We started a show at WPPM called Looking Forward Reentry Radio, where it's people coming out and talking about all of the challenges. But it's really like, it's really an opportunity to hear what people's future plans are, right? Because it's called Looking Forward, right? How they're going to, achieve all those dreams and things that they had been talking about. And you would be surprised by some of the people that come on the show. You would never, ever know that they were incarcerated. So there's a lot of stigma and a lot of stereotypes that need to be lifted. And I think through podcasts like these and shows like ours, you're able to connect. And I say that because people say really mean things about people who are incarcerated. And I will say, well, my dad was incarcerated. And then they go like, oh, they don't make that connection. They don't know that somebody that they might be talking to has a loved one on the inside or grew up with a father who was incarcerated. So my message to everybody listening out there is there's a lot of books. There's a lot of content out there. There's even newspapers and newsletters being created by people who are on the inside. Media and communication really is their link to the outside world. And so this question is for Suave. How important is this for you in terms of representation and finally representing for all the people that are still inside that you left behind? What does creating this podcast mean for you?
I can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. My question is, what has it been like for you to represent for all the people that's formerly incarcerated or people who are still on the inside through your work on this podcast? Because hearing your story, hearing your voice, it really humanizes people. And what does it mean for you to be that voice for the voices, to be able to give a positive representation for people like you?
Well, first of all, I was able to do this because I'm around an honest journalist. And it's important to know that if you're going to do this kind of work as a journalist, you have to be honest, meaning that you're not going to come into a source light and sensationalize that story and then go. And that's the disconnect that a lot of people have with people on the inside, that they just want a story, they want to sell papers. That wasn't the case with Maria. I never even talked to Maria about my case to probably a decade into our relationship, or probably longer than that. Because it wasn't about help me get out of jail or none of that. It wasn't about that. It was about the human contact. It was about she offered me something that my family didn't, which was a Christmas card. It's that simple, believe it or not. It was a Christmas card and a birthday card. That's it. You know, and so for me to be able to represent the brothers on the inside, I've been doing that since I've been home. My work speaks for itself. You know, the podcast is the gravy, it's the cherry on top. But I've been representing the brothers and sisters that's coming home or they're still in the penitentiary. You know, it is my duty as a former juvenile lifer to do good, because if I do bad, they're all going to suffer the consequences. This is how the system is structured. So I got to do good. You know, the podcast is just helping educate the public on what's really going on inside them walls. A lot of time, people think that the prison walls are just there to keep us in. No, the prison walls are there to keep you from knowing the injustice that's taking place. And again, if we could just be honest and show some compassion and empathy towards each other, I guarantee you, every journalist will have a story like Maria did. I guarantee you that.
No.
And I don't regret being Maria Hinojosa. And I don't regret being Maria Hinojosa Source. You know, I'm hearing that word a lot lately. And you know what I say to that? I say to that, it was an honor, because in being that source, I was able to transform my life. I was able to see somebody that I could never imagine, which is a man that has compassion and empathy for other people. I was able to do that through heart, relationship, friendship.
Suave, I
Or
want
whatever
to
anybody.
Hold on.
Maria needs to jump
let
in.
Maria respond because she has something to say.
Yeah.
You're wrong, Suave. It would not. There are many journalists who have empathy, and they won't have the capacity to get this story, because you actually are also an essential part of the story. And so you're cutting yourself short, and I'm not going to let that happen, because you have to, and people who are watching this and who are going to listen, óyeme, you did the work, okay? I was out here receiving a phone call, clicking yes and clicking this, and I was doing this and I was collecting it. I wasn't doing the work of becoming literate in a men's prison, a maximum security men's prison. I wasn't doing the work of having to live years in solitary. I wasn't doing the work of having to find humanity and finding hope in the worst of circumstances. So muchas gracias, Suave, for telling me, and for giving me kudos. I appreciate that. But seriously, no. Like, you are the symbol of the possibility of hope for the men and the women who actually have done time or are doing time. Not me, you. And so you have to own that. Something it's hard to understand exactly what happened, what that, and that's why I think life is really kind of beautiful and extraordinary, right? These fleeting moments. But there's no way that I can let this happen without giving the credit to Suave, por favor. O sea, he made the life that he made. And to the activists, to the human rights activists who decided, many of them black and brown, most of them who decided that they were going to fight against the lifetime incarceration of juveniles, and to the scientists, the neuroscientists, who were studying the brain to understand that you are an adolescent until the age of 26. Right? And so it's because of all of that that this happens. But Suave, you, yeah, I mean, the podcast is great. I'm very excited, but this is tu vida, and you made this happen.
That's right. That's right. Before, I know we're a little over time with Maria, so we want to thank her. Maria, we want to give you the opportunity to share any final thoughts you have. We'll have a few more moments with Luis Suave Gonzalez to talk more about the podcast and any of his other observations. This has been very gripping. I know people are on the edge of their seat watching this conversation. So, Maria, anything else on Suave, the podcast, and of course your new book, Once I Was You?
Well, definitely get the book for sure. Because it's just it's a way that I can communicate with you as a writer, which I really appreciate. I'm ridiculously proud of Suave and his life, that he's out, that he has made it through a really challenging year, to have survived being in lockdown in a prison and then come out and have to survive being in lockdown in our society. And being on the front lines, being a frontline worker. I mean, it was actually a year ago, Suave, ¿te acuerdas? Of course you remember it, because it stood out. It stood out a lot. It was about in a month, at the height of the pandemic. So it would have been the end of March, or when I was already sick with COVID, when I yelled at Suave in a way that and I me solté, and I was yelling at him because he was doing frontline work, and he was going to work every day when everything was shut down, and I was battling COVID in a bed, and I was just like, ¿Cómo se te ocurre? Because I need Suave to value his life.
That's right. That's right. Well, we want to thank you so much, Maria. Suave is going to give us
have a good time, Suave,
for his conversation. Suave, we're going to give ourselves a chance to wipe off a couple tears and kind of get our emotions together. We're going to hear a musical clip. Maria, we did a Puerto Rico Parranda episode during the holidays, which I'm sure you would enjoy. So I know you enjoyed some wonderful Puerto Rican Christmas music from the very talented Fabiola Mendez, and we'll come back and continue this conversation with Luis Suave Gonzalez. Maria, thank you so much. You're a community treasure, and we value your time on the show.
Love you back.
Check out Futuro Media for all their podcasts and Latino USA, and get the book, I Once Was You.
We'll be right back with Suave Gonzalez. Maria, thank you so much.
Holgorio, porque Holgorio está bien encendido.
El Holgorio está, bien por la maceta, vamos a gozar, huepa, 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 vamos a gozar, huepa, huepa, huepa. Yo estaré cantando hasta que amanezca, y el Holgorio está, bien por la maceta, vamos a gozar, huepa, huepa, huepa. Coro, el Holgorio está, bien por la maceta, vamos a gozar, huepa, 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 vamos a gozar, huepa, 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 con el ron y anís, que con el ron y anís, yo haré una receta, y el Holgorio está, bien por la maceta, vamos a gozar, huepa, 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 el Holgorio está, bien por la maceta, vamos a gozar, huepa, huepa, huepa.
Thank you so much, Fabiola Mendez and Chatekwi, some incredible Puerto Rican artists. Fabiola Mendez Suave was the first person ever to graduate from the Berklee College of Music as a cuatro player. So Fabiola, and then the female in the Jibaro music game. So quite a blazing grown trail. We're here with Luis Suave Gonzalez, our Philadelphia family, and the podcast world. Luis, amongst other accolades, is really telling his very incredible personal journey of redemption on the hottest podcast, the Suave Podcast. We encourage everyone to download it, subscribe it. And as I'll share a little bit more in a moment, the more I listen to the podcast, not only to get to know Suave, but realize how much of our lives were intertwined. Suave, you had a minute to kind of listen to Maria's thoughts. Just any other reactions to the conversation we just had with your colleague, your friend, and someone that covered you as a journalist for decades.
I mean, I got stories for days about Maria. Me? Yeah, Maria. I got stories for days about Maria. Maria, it is, man, that this podcast is not about me. Thousands and thousands of juvenile lifers that are still behind walls. It's about redemption. It's about showing people that people do change. You know, like a lot of the time we see some of these young kids in our neighborhoods and we just want to throw the key away on them. And we can't. We can't. You know, because when we do, you know what you get? You get angry people. And angry people like to hurt people. So I just want to tell the people, man, listen to the podcast. Use it. Because my main goal of putting my life out there was to try to prevent somebody else from ending up in prison. That's my main goal. If we could save one little Latino or brother or sister from ending up in prison, then our job is done. And that's why I decided to just put it all out there.
Luis, what's so incredible is that, and someone that grew up in North Philly during the same time you were there and having a lot of connections, and we're going to talk about one of those folks in a second that's a dear friend of both of us, family, is that the North Philly you came back to wasn't much different than North Philly you left. And so talk to us about the community that you serve now and your observations sort of now post-incarceration in this redemptive phase of your life, but you're seeing a lot of these young people going through the same issues, if not more extreme at times.
Wow. When I came home and I drove by Hutchinson Street in Indiana, and I was like, wow. I just felt like I never left because the neighborhood is still the same. I even saw some of the people that I knew, and it's just so hurtful to see my people, you know, stuck in time. You know, so I believe that it's my obligation, man, to come there and talk to the kids, which I've done at Esperanza School. Every time somebody called me, I needed to talk to somebody, I do it. Even if I don't want to or feel like it that day, I do it because I understand the importance of it. And we need to do better in our community. We need to give back. And even though I was in prison, I benefited from the good things in my community. So now it's my turn to pay it forward and just do what I could do to help that community. And that's what I'm doing in the coming weeks. I will be debuting on a new podcast called Death by Incarceration podcast. On every platform, you're going to get it. And that podcast is going to tell stories from guys in prison, from North Philly, and from all over the country. But the most important thing is that you're going to hear is the human side. Not everybody in prison is innocent. Not everybody in prison is in prison because they committed a crime. You know, and I'm a true testament of that. I went to prison because I respected the quote unquote, the code of the streets. So to all the young people out there, the streets love no one. That lifestyle don't respect nothing. The people that I protected, the people that I sacrificed my life for, not one sent me a letter. Not one. So my question is, what code was I protecting? I gave my life up for what? So now I have dedicated my life to service, to serve my community. You know, that's the only code I respect today, my community. Everything else, I don't believe in it. So to all the young kids out there that want to be running around, committing these senseless violence act on our own people in the community, trust me, if the system get their hands on you, they have a place for you called prison. And if you get a life sentence, you probably would die in prison to death. And we don't want that for you. So
That's
every
right.
time you commit a senseless act, every time you out there acting like a fool, think about me. Think about me. And then ask yourself, do I want to do 31 years in prison?
Vanessa, I know Suave's story resonates so much with you as a journalist and an activist. And wow, I mean, his story and his message really encapsulates the issues and the struggles that we're going through in North Philadelphia and in Latino minority communities around the country.
In a way, it was hard to listen to the podcast at times because that frustration that Suave feels at times, that pain, is so palpable, right? And you know, I know Suave, right? We met organizing to get the vote out. I had no idea what his story was. I just was introduced to him as a regular guy. So listening to his story in the podcast was almost shocking in a lot of ways because that's, you know, I had no idea everything that he went through. And, you know, his story is that he got out and he's here with us. And, you know, we were able to hug at the rally, right, in front of City Hall. You know, I seen him. I was happy to see you there. And, you know, we're still here. But the reality is there's so many people that are still behind bars that have been forgotten about, that don't have a Maria Hinojosa in their life. They don't have anybody. And as somebody who grew up with a parent who is incarcerated, it has lifelong effects, right? It's not just the time that you serve, but the time afterwards. That's such a huge struggle that has an impact on so many people in the community, including your immediate family. And a lot of these men and women have children that they come back to on the outside. And that's not something they really prepare you for when you are doing time, right? Rebuilding those relationships and preparing to be a father or an uncle or, you know, a family member. So though the story is so inspiring and encouraging, and it's really funny too. Suave is a funny guy. So I laughed a lot listening to the way that he talks and the stories that he would tell and the things that he would get excited about.
You know,
but in a way, it's really triggering.
That, the most important thing is that we all are human beings. We all make mistakes, and we growing and we trying to pay it forward. And to me, it's almost like I cannot turn my back on the brothers and sisters that I left behind. I cannot do it. And it's hard. It's hard. I just lost my job because of my background. I just lost a job. You know, so if there's anyone out there, HR, that want to hire me, I got 2 degrees. I know I'm qualified. You know, but I just lost my job when somebody heard the first episode of the podcast. You know, so, but it's all right. It's all right. I'm going to survive. I'm going to survive. You know, as long as I got my support team, and I know we're running out of time, but like a great man that's been a father figure to me, which is Roger Sipernet.
Yes.
Like he's like, I call him dad. Put it that way.
That's my gringo uncle right there, man.
Everybody knows Roger and loves him.
No, that's family. That's a whole other episode. Please give Roger that love. Give him his flowers, brother.
Roger used to come visit me in the prison, rain, snow, when nobody else believed that we was coming out. Roger was there.
Yeah.
And he still go to the prison and visit brothers. A lot of people don't know that. When I came home, November 20, 2017, Roger Sipernet was the one that picked me up. And Maria Hinojosa.
That's right.
And Aisha Richardson. You know, so we can't forget, man, that we have a lot of people in the community that really cares about people incarcerated. That's and right. It's because of them that we come home and really want to give back. We want to give back because we want to mimic what they've done for us.
Not all heroes wear capes, man. You know.
And to me,
that's the real ones.
My community could count on me anytime. Like I told Ray, I don't care how big this podcast get. And even though we number 27 on the top chart.
Who's counting, brother? And you're rising. You're rising, brother. God bless. It's so awesome.
He's cutting up a little bit, but
we have to show love to each other. We have to respect each other's creativity. Listen, I got a lot of people that has mentored me, that has helped me, such as Gilbert Gonzalez, like he's one of my mentors. Ray Collazo's the father, he was like one of the guys that used to send us shout out to the prisons, used to visit us when he was able to. You know, these are people we can't forget. These are people in the community that the young bulls don't know about. You know, they don't know about the old school. But these are the people that hold us down. And to me, that means a lot. I'm able to do that for other people because of what people done for me. You know, so, and to you, you know, the time that I met you in your reporting, it is important that we keep that in the community, that we stay in touch. You know, and even though I got a great opportunity now to produce a podcast for Apple and CrowdSpace, which is death by incarceration, like I was telling Ray, I'm bringing my Latino people with me to a national stage. We bringing these issues to a national stage because guess what? It's not about me. It's about the people. And the podcast would not be nothing if it wasn't for the people that's listening to it. So I just want to thank everybody out there that's listening to the podcast. Thank you. And to my fiance, you know, that been with me, that's holding me down. Thank you for putting up with all my busy schedule. Thank you for understanding. And just thank you for embracing me and not judging me for my past. That means a lot. And to my community in North Philly, yo, stand up. We are now in the national stage. NSNBC Sunday.
No doubt, no doubt. You gotta keep following what's going on with Luis Suave Gonzalez and Suave before we wrap this up, and I'll definitely give Vanessa also an update.
We just getting started, Ray.
I know you are, brother, but your humility, I can't. We don't have enough time for me to get into how touching our relationship has been. And let me tell you something. For someone that really doesn't know anybody anything at this point, you know, and he's got a lot of living to give, and he's giving so much. The kind of support he's given to me. When, you know, again, there's so many other people, there's so many people that he's touching, and he's going out of his way to connect with so many of us, like Vanessa and myself, and people that have been so blessed in so many other ways. He continues to give love and blessings and positive energy. So Suave, you know, when we met, or I remember the first time we really hung out tough was summer of 2019, and our great friend Chris Rodriguez through a fantastic event at Sunflower, a charity event to support relief efforts in Puerto Rico. That really gave me the seed of an idea to do a virtual event to celebrate the talent, character, and perseverance of the Puerto Rican community. That event took place virtually. Vanessa was a big part of it as a director. Bomba Live last June. And one of the things, Suave, we're going to do Bomba Live 2 again. And I'm going to put up the flag, so save the date. Bomba Live 2 is going to take place Saturday, June 12th on all of our social media channels. It's going to be an all-day celebration of the talent, character, and perseverance of the Puerto Rican community. That night, Suave, we're going to honor, as we did last year, icons, legends, but most importantly, people from our community, the true heroes, the ones that don't wear capes, the people that really show what the Puerto Rican character and perseverance really means. And brother, I just want to let you know that night you're going to be honored. So I just wanted to let you know that you're going to be a Bomba Live award recipient that evening, and the first ever Bomba Live award for perseverance in the Puerto Rican community, brother, because let me tell you something. I've had it easy, and people say, wow, you work so hard. Let me tell you something. People like Suave sacrificed. And like my family members, they sacrificed so people like me and Vanessa could serve. And so, you know, it is great honor, Luis. That night we're gonna celebrate your legacy and what you're gonna continue to do, because this is just the beginning, brother. The best is yet to come. And I could just think of all the literally millions of people you've already touched, brother. I have people in San Diego, Vegas, Phoenix, people have never been to Philly, people don't know Puerto Rican, texting me, DMing me saying, I want to go to Philly and walk them streets, Somerset Street, Hudson Street. I want to feel this community. I want to help these people that Suave represents. So, brother, put June 12th on your calendars, all of you. We need to be there to support and congratulate Suave. Bumble Life 2 on June 12th. And Vanessa, you've been such a big part of this journey. I wanted to give Vanessa an opportunity to say a few words. And Suave, you're going to get the last word, brother. And congratulations. That honor is the least we can provide you on June 12th, my friend.
Honor.
Yes, felicidades. It's amazing. Well deserved. I just want to shout out a few more people. Donnell Drinks, who I know is a partner of yours, also working with people coming home, and Robert Salim Holbrook. You know, these are some heroes in Philly. There's actually a really big movement in Philadelphia of people trying to decarcerate and bring people home and change a lot of the sentencing laws and drug policy laws. And so, you know, definitely check out the Abolitionist Law Center and the Human Rights Coalition. They're two amazing organizations, because we always like to pique people's interests and then give them an opportunity, right? These are organizations you can support. These are places you can volunteer with. And there's ways for every single person out there who's listening to help end this really evil system of mass incarceration, and to also end the practice of solitary confinement, which is, I believe, is torture. So I want people to listen at least to one episode, because I think it really gets to what are the root causes of mass incarceration? What are the root causes of young people? So many of you are young people, especially in Philly right now. Like, this year has had skyrocketing numbers of shootings, of murders, and it's all people under the age of 25. There's a lot of reasons for that. And we really, as Suave said, we need to stand up. We need mutual aid. We need solidarity. It's something that if our community doesn't stand up for one another to address this problem, who's going to advocate for us, you know? Right. And we definitely need to be in solidarity with our Black brothers and sisters, and you know, Black and brown. We need to unite on this whole issue around mass incarceration. So, Suave, I want to thank you for sharing your story. The podcast is amazing. Every episode is really gripping and interesting, and I really do believe it represents for people who are incarcerated and shows the humanity of everybody involved. So, and also, again, I said it wrong the last time, but Maria's book, Once I Was You, is
it's a tongue twister. It's forgivable. It's okay. Once I was you.
I was a little starstruck with Maria Hinojosa. I was like, wow, I can't believe we're talking to her. So, you know, again, just so many opportunities to talk to all of the cool Latinos in this country through this program, Found in Translation. So thanks for bringing me on, Ray. It's been great.
Couldn't have done without you, my friend. Thank you so much for all that you do.
Live is going to be lit June 12th.
Oh, yeah.
Put it on your calendars.
That's why we're going to be in the house. That's going to be a good party, brother.
Why wait until June?
I will be there.
The full version last time is online.
Yeah, that's right.
All the performances and conversations right now on YouTube.
Suave, you have the last word, brother. Thank you so much for this. This has been a historic conversation, and want to make sure you get a final word to our podcast community.
Well, to everybody out there, I just want to say, be safe, wear your mask, and love each other. And stay tuned for the Death by Incarceration podcast. It's coming within a month. It should be on every platform. And trust me, we are putting Philly on the map. Peace.
No question, brother. You're doing your thing, brother. Check us out on Clubhouse tomorrow, 12 o'clock. We're going to have a great conversation with Denise Collazo, an activist in her own right and the author of Thriving in the Fight. So check us out on Clubhouse. We got to get you on Clubhouse, brother.
And thank you for
we got to do our thing, and we're going to go out with yeah, no doubt. Suave Podcast is, I mean, is groundbreaking, brother. Thank you for all you do. And we're going to take it out with Maria Isa, talking about one of the great performances, Vanessa, we had last June. Maria Isa, the tremendous activist who was a personal friend of George Floyd's. The Derek Chauvin trial is about to begin. And a little bomba from Minnesota to end this wonderful show. Vanessa, thank you so much. Of course, Maria Hinojosa, her team, for making these arrangements. And Suave Gonzalez, big part of the family. Have a great weekend, everybody.
Fuego, que fuego. Si no pone la gente se va a quemar. Que si no pone la gente se va a quemar. Fuego, fuego, Minnesota. Fuego, fuego, Minneapolis. Fuego, fuego para Jorge. Fuego, fuego para los nombres que han matado la policía. Que se largan ya. Que yo no quiero sufrir. Mi gente negra no quieren más, no quieren no sufrir. Que todos tenemos que vivir con unidad y no van a sufrir. Ay, cómo duele, cómo duele, cómo duele.